Would you make a deal with darkness? If it meant holding your child one last time? Bring Her Back 2025 is an Australian supernatural horror film directed by Danny and Michael Philippou. With an IMDb rating of 7.2 stars out of 10, it's a chilling tale of grief, obsession, and the terrifying consequences of opening doors that should stay shut. Before we dive into the creepy details, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more spine-tingling recaps. All right, turn down the lights. It's time to meet Bring Her Back. The film begins with old, grainy footage of a strange ritual. A girl is placed in the center of a circle drawn on the ground. A large, bloated man steps into the circle with her. Another girl is then hanged by the neck. After that, a second girl is shown. The camera closes in on her face, showing a dark red birthmark under her eye. In the next scene, a blind teenage girl named Piper tries to talk to three girls her age at a bus stop because she wants to make friends. Her stepbrother Andy comes to take her home and notices the girls quietly mocking her. Later that day, Andy and Piper find their father, Phil, dead in the shower from a drug overdose. After that, Andy and Piper meet with a social worker named Wendy. Wendy arranges for Piper to stay in foster care with a woman named Laura. Andy is supposed to move to a different home. He argues that he and Piper should stay together, but Wendy says he can apply for guardianship when he turns 18. She also mentions that Andy got into trouble when he was 8 years old, something he never told Piper, and that Laura might not like this. After Andy insists, Wendy finally agrees to ask Laura if both of them can stay with her. The next day, Piper and Andy arrive at Laura's house. Laura introduces herself to them and takes a picture with them, but she makes sure to block Andy in the photo. She only talks to Piper and ignores Andy. Later, Andy and Piper go out to the backyard. Andy accidentally lets Laura's cat escape, and the cat starts scratching a boy named Oliver. He has a mark under his eye that looks like the one the girl had in the video. Soon after, Laura introduces Piper and Andy to Oliver. She says Oliver lost his parents, and she is taking care of him. She explains that Oliver hasn't spoken since her daughter Kathy, who was blind, died by drowning. Laura lets Piper stay in the room that belonged to her late daughter, Kathy, and gives Andy a different room. Andy texts a friend, calling Oliver a weirdo. Suddenly, Laura comes into the room and says that Wendy told her Andy wants to get guardianship of Piper. Andy explains he can apply in 3 months when he turns 18. Laura tells him to stay responsible so she can report to Wendy how safe and reliable he is for guardianship. Then Piper calls Andy. While talking to Piper, he leaves his phone on the bed. Laura notices the text about Oliver. Andy quickly takes the phone back from her. Laura then asks Andy if Oliver is a weirdo. Andy says no. Laura nods and leaves the room. Later, Laura watches the video of the cult ritual, which suggests she is planning to do something bad to Piper and Andy. The next day, Laura takes Andy and Piper to Phil's funeral. While no one is watching, Laura quietly cuts a piece of Phil's hair. Later, Piper asks Andy how their dad looks, but he lies and tells her that he looks good. Laura purposely says that Andy didn't even look at Phil. This upsets Piper because earlier, Andy told her their dad looked good, using the word grapefruit, which is their special word for telling the truth. Andy goes back inside and looks at Phil's body. Laura tells Andy to give his father a goodbye kiss. Andy kisses Phil on the forehead, but Laura insists he kisses him on the lips, which Andy doesn't agree with, so she does it herself. Later that night, Laura gives Andy and Piper alcohol, and they have a little dance party. When Piper goes to sleep, Andy and Laura stay up talking about personal things. Andy asks Laura how she coped after her daughter died. Laura says she didn't. She used to stay at the cemetery for days and never got over Kathy's death. Andy tells Laura that when his father married Piper's mother, he finally felt like his father finally had the family he always wanted. He also says that his father used to beat him when he got in trouble at school, but he never told Piper about it so that her view of their father would not be shattered. After Andy goes to bed, Laura pees into a cup and pours it on Andy's pants while he sleeps so he will think he wet the bed. She also unlocks his phone and deletes any pictures of Oliver and the house. Later, Laura gives Oliver a bath. She looks in the mirror and sees Oliver's eyes turn bright red, and his face changes into a demon. This scares her. In the morning, Andy thinks he wet the bed and takes the sheets to wash, but Laura takes the clothes from him and asks if he peed. She tells him to take a shower. She also says that she and Piper are going shopping for girl things and asks Andy to watch Oliver. After they leave, Andy takes a bath outside because he's avoiding showers in the bathroom due to the trauma of his father's death. Later, Andy knocks on Oliver's door and finds it locked. He unlocks it and goes inside. He tries to get Oliver to communicate by writing something on a piece of paper. Andy cuts up a fruit and feeds it to Oliver, but Oliver grabs the knife and starts chewing on the blade, cutting his mouth and teeth. Andy picks him up and tries to rush him to the hospital, but when they cross over a large white ring around the house, Oliver starts screaming in pain. His skin begins to burn and blister. Then Oliver looks at Andy and says, "Help me." Soon, Laura and Piper arrive home. Laura yells at Andy for taking Oliver outside and tells him to get Piper into the house. Inside, Andy is shaken by what happened to Oliver. He sees that Oliver has written the word bird on the paper, which confuses him. Meanwhile, Laura takes Oliver to her room and starts watching the same cult video. Suddenly, Oliver asks her who she is and starts yelling for help. Laura turns up the TV volume so Andy and Piper won't hear him scream. She then rubs Oliver's forehead while following instructions from the video. The demon takes over Oliver's body again. After that, Laura feeds him some of Andy's father's hair. Later, Piper searches for the cat who is missing, and it reveals the house is surrounded by a large white ring. In the following scene, Andy starts to take a shower when he sees what looks like Phil's ghost walking past. The ghost mutters,
"She'll die in the rain."
Andy then clearly sees his dad's face with bright red eyes. In a panic, he slips and falls, hitting his head. He ends up in the hospital and sees that it is raining. He starts yelling at the doctor, saying he needs to go home or his sister will die, but the doctor won't let him leave. In the following scene, Laura visits Andy in the hospital. She tells him he will be discharged tomorrow because he has a concussion. Andy asks her to keep Piper inside the house. He also tells her he saw his dad, who warned that Piper will die in the rain. Suddenly, Laura asks Andy if he ever thought it was because his dad died in the shower when she killed him. Hearing this, Andy is confused and thinks he must be imagining things because of the concussion. Laura promises that she will keep Piper inside the house. At home, Laura takes Piper outside in the rain even though she promised Andy, and they start dancing together. Then Laura brings Piper to a shed and makes her touch Kathy's frozen body inside a freezer. When Piper asks what it is, Laura tells her it's just meat. The next day, Andy gets discharged from the hospital. After that, Laura watches the cult tape again. It explains how the ritual works. First, someone who is possessed by a demon named Tari must eat the old body. Then, a second person is killed, and the demon throws up on the second person body. This allows the soul from the old body to move into the new one to bring them back to life. This is Laura's plan. Oliver is already possessed by the demon Tari. He needs to eat Kathy's body so the demon can move Kathy's soul into Piper's body. That's why Laura is planning to kill Piper, in the same way Kathy died, by drowning her in the pool while it's raining. This way, Kathy's soul can take over Piper's body, and in return, the demon will take Piper's soul. In the next scene, Laura sprays Andy's body spray on herself. She wants to make Piper think Andy hurt her. Then she goes into Piper's room and punches her hard in the face, giving her a black eye. In the morning after, Andy wakes up.
Anything you want to say? Sure, love.
Before he can say anything, Laura blames him for hitting her. She also accuses him of hiding the truth about Phil's abuse, cutting Oliver's mouth, seeing his dead dad's ghost, and even blames him for her missing cat. Suddenly, Andy sees Oliver standing outside in the rain and tries to record him on his phone. But Laura grabs the phone and throws it. Andy gets angry and punches the wall. Laura then convinces Piper that Andy hit her. Andy tells Piper to pack her things because they're leaving, but Piper doesn't trust him. Feeling hurt, Andy storms out of the house. Laura cleverly turns Piper against Andy and completely breaks her trust in him. He goes to see the social worker, Wendy. While waiting, Andy sees a missing poster of a boy named Connor Bird and realizes it's actually Oliver. Later, Wendy tells Andy that Laura has already reported him for hitting Piper. Andy denies it and also tells her that Laura has kidnapped Connor, who is now at her house. But Wendy doesn't believe him because Laura has worked as a counselor for 20 years and was one of the best. She says Laura would never hurt a child. Andy keeps trying to convince her, and finally Wendy agrees to go with him to Laura's house to find out the truth. In the next scene, Laura drops Piper off at the rec center to play goalball. She tells Piper she'll be back soon. Back at home, Oliver is going wild, tearing the place apart and eating anything he can find. When Laura tries to stop him, he bites a large piece of flesh from her arm. Screaming in pain, she locks herself in a room to get away from him. Oliver then starts chewing on the thick wooden table, cutting up his mouth with splinters. After that, he rips a strip of flesh from his own arm and begins eating it. Later, Laura sees Oliver standing outside. She draws a circle on the glass to calm him and makes him start the ritual. He begins eating Kathy's body, just like the tape said. Laura hears a message Andy left for Piper, where he tells her he loves her like a real brother and warns her about Laura. Realizing that Andy and Wendy are on their way, Laura quickly starts cleaning up Oliver's mess in a panic. Wendy arrives and goes inside, but doesn't see anything wrong at first. Meanwhile, Andy breaks into Laura's shed and finds Oliver eating Kathy's dead body. Wendy then notices Laura's bloody arm and starts to suspect something is wrong. Laura drops the act and tells Wendy that Kathy can come back, but for that to happen, Piper has to die the same way Kathy did. Hearing this, Wendy runs out in shock. Andy calls out to Wendy and shows her Oliver eating Kathy's body. But before they can get help, Laura drives her van straight at them, hitting Wendy and badly hurting Andy. Then she finishes Andy off by drowning him in a puddle. In the next scene, Laura brings Piper home. Piper hears Andy calling her, but it's actually Oliver copying Andy's voice. She follows the sound and finds Oliver. When she touches his head, Laura suddenly appears and says, "Andy is downstairs." Piper looks at her and asks, "Who did I just feel?" Laura quietly replies, "It was Oliver." Then Piper asks Laura, "What color is Oliver's hair?" Laura says, "Red, thick, and curly." But Piper realizes she's lying because she just touched Oliver's head and knows he has no hair. Scared, Piper runs and locks herself in the bathroom. While hiding, she feels something and realizes it's Andy's dead body. She recognizes him by touching his braces. Laura unlocks the door, and Piper asks, "What happened to Andy?" Laura says he had an accident. Then Laura begins explaining her plan to bring Kathy back by putting her soul into Piper's body. Horrified, Piper throws a glass at Laura to escape, but she accidentally hits her head on a pole and falls unconscious. Laura drags Piper to the pool while it's raining, trying to recreate how Kathy died. She begins to drown Piper. As Piper struggles, she starts calling Laura Mom. Hearing this, Laura gets emotional, remembering when she found Kathy's body in the pool. She pulls Piper out of the water and, unable to kill Piper, so she lets her go. Just then, Oliver appears and tries to attack Piper. She fights him off and escapes. Piper runs until a kind couple finds her and takes her to safety. Back at the house, Oliver walks past the ritual circle outside. He suddenly starts throwing up and spits out the demon that was inside him. Meanwhile, Laura takes Kathy's body out of the freezer. She opens the wound on her own arm and lets herself bleed to death while holding Kathy. Later, Piper hears Andy's final message to her. Then she hears a plane flying overhead. Something Andy once said meant their dad was going to heaven. Piper smiles, thinking Andy is finally at peace. The police arrive at Laura's house and find Oliver, who tells them his real name, Connor Bird. They then find Laura's body in the pool, holding Kathy. And the movie ends. And that wraps up Bring Her Back, 2025, a chilling descent into grief, possession, and a twisted mother's desperate wish to rewrite fate. Piper may have survived, but the trauma and the darkness Laura unleashed won't fade anytime soon. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more spine-tingling movie breakdowns. Thanks for watching. So until next time, stay safe and stay out of the circle.